is the Forbes Books Podcast, conversations with remarkable folks who are impacting the world of business and beyond. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and I'm thrilled to have Jenn Drummond on the pod today. Jenn is not only a successful business owner and a mother of 7, but also a world record holder who has climbed the second highest peaks on each of the 7 continents. She did this after surviving a car accident that changed her perspective on life and challenged her to pursue her true passion. Jenn's also a speaker, an author, and a podcast host who inspires others to rise above the expectations of others and reach their own personal summit. She's written 2 books, Take Your Second Summit and the upcoming Quit Proof. Her motto, you've climbed someone else's mountain, now it's time to claim yours. Jenn, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And so I want to start by, I mentioned in the open your accomplishments, but one of the craziest things you ever did was have 7 kids. What is that all about?
Yes. So I had fertility assistance, and it was one of those battles where you were born a female. The one thing you should naturally be able to do is have children. So there was a whole bunch of shame and guilt and all this stuff around that story. I went through fertility treatments for a long time. They finally found the magic cocktail. That magic cocktail turned me into a hen on one of these like systems. And they got 28 eggs. So when they got 28 eggs, they allowed them to try to naturally fertilize in a petri dish. 14 fertilized. When I went to the doctor, I said, okay, what do we do with these? You have choices. You donate them, which my whole life I'll be like, are you my kid? Are you my kid? Are you my kid? You destroy them, which I had one. I'm like, karma's going to bite me in the butt, and then this is going to be a nightmare. So then you use them. And the doctor's like, I bet you'll get 3 or 4. I grew up Catholic with a huge family. My dad's one of 13. So I'm like, I can do 3 or 4. I got 7 beautiful little people.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, and I never really like to talk about motherhood on this podcast, but the idea of 7 would jumped out at me because it's like, I have trouble with one dog, Jenn. So I don't even know how you deal with 7. Like I spent the night cleaning up dog poop because my puppy Nathan's not feeling well. So I try to multiply that by 7 and I'm like, I can't handle that. So, I mean, and obviously you're a successful business person. You've become an incredible speaker, but how do you manage 7 other lives? I mean, without the mother heart, but managing 7 other lives, that to me is I can't understand.
Yeah, no, I think I could teach a course in logistics 1,000%. I have a lot of help. So that makes a big difference. My oldest turned 16 in the last year, which has been woo, the all new level of a celebration. But yeah, no, it's a lot to manage. But again, each one of them is so unique and has their own story and their own little rhythm and their own little beat. So my job is just to support whatever that is so they can do their magic. And it's been fun to watch.
Wow, that's amazing. On top of all the other amazing things you've done, to me, that's the most impressive thing because I'm like, I just don't get, I could get how someone could climb a mountain if they're in physical enough shape, they have the mental fortitude. That I could almost not that I could do it, I could understand it. The 7 children thing, I cannot. So, and I know you've discussed a lot the incident in 2018 that led you down this path, the car accident. And one of the questions I like to bring up on the podcast is the sliding doors question. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Gwyneth Paltrow movie, Sliding Doors, where in it, 2 separate stories break off from where she gets on the train or she misses the train. So it tells 2 divergent stories and what happens to her life if she gets on the train or not. And so my question to you is a sliding doors question. If that car accident didn't happen in 2018, does your life look a lot different than it does now? Do you think you would have found this evolution somewhere down the line? Or did you need that sort of catalytic event to set you on this path?
I 1,000% needed the catalytic event to set me on this path because I think we naturally become boiling frogs to our own lives, right? Things just seep in and eventually this is what you're doing and you don't really even take a chance to say, is this what I want to be doing? Am I fulfilled? Am I happy? That's probably one of the biggest blessings of COVID is it broke all of us out of this trance of what our everyday life was and gave us a chance to reevaluate and say, hey, do I want to make this drive? Am I happy? Am I spending my life that if it was done tomorrow, this is the resume that I want to leave behind? And so the car accident, this was a few years ahead of COVID for me and really set me on this path of we get one chance We don't get to choose when we die, but we sure get to choose how we live. And am I choosing life the way that I want it to look?
Have you ever imagined a life without that car accident? I know it was hell, but like, do you imagine like you wouldn't be speaking to a handsome guy like me right now? Maybe not. Who knows?
I know.
Like,
I wouldn't know about your puppy that had bathroom problems, like all the things. So it was
all
perfect.
the important things you would have missed out on.
Yes.
So have you ever envisioned what it could be like?
I don't even go there because there's no point,
Okay.
right? There, I mean, here's where I am and this is what I have and let's make the most of it and move forward and continue on.
All right, so I didn't mean to poo-poo your achievements in terms of the climbing the mountains, the 7 peaks, the second highest summits. What led you to that? Like, of all the things that you could have done, because obviously you've got the physical stamina to do certain things. You're probably pretty athletic. You probably have spent some time at a gym, maybe a couple days a week.
Right, yeah.
A couple. Why that? Why summits?
So I have 7 children. And there's something magical about being on a quiet mountain where you don't hear the word mom, to be honest with you, like if I'm giving you the pure truth. Here's the deal. I moved to Park City in 2015. I grew up in Michigan. When I moved to Park City, everything was, you would step outside of Costco and see these huge mountains. And I remember telling myself, please don't let this become normalized. Like, please see the magic in all of this. When I first moved to Park City, a friend of mine was a climber and said, hey, let's go to Jackson Hole and climb the Grand Teton. I said, okay, perfect. I'll go climb the Grand Teton. No idea what mountaineering is, sleeping in a tent, never done any of that kind of stuff before, but let's try it. It was this amazing experience. I absolutely loved it. I had 7 kids at home. So it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, when I have more time, this is something I actually really love doing. I want to do more of this. Car accident happens. All of a sudden, I'm like, wow, there's this list of things that I want to do more of. I'm healthy and young right now. This is the time to do it. I was turning 40 in 2020. So I decided like I was going to climb a big mountain for my 40th birthday to launch off that decade and have it mean something significant. So when I asked people like, hey, if you could climb one mountain in the whole world, what would it be? And the general consensus was a mountain called Ama Dablam, located over in Nepal. It's the Paramount Pictures logo. So if anybody knows, right? So now everybody kind of gets it in their head. It's on the way to Everest. It's this beautiful mountain. I started studying it. And I was super excited to climb that mountain. COVID hits. So all of us are super excited to be homeschooling 7 children. Like 7. Like I didn't know I had a lot of kids until they all had to be homeschooled at the same time by me.
Right.
So we're doing our homework. One of them's complaining. I'm like, listen, buddy, we do hard things. He looks at me and he goes, if we do hard things, why are you climbing a mountain called I'm a Dumb Blonde instead of a real mountain like Mount Everest? Ama Dablam, not I'm a Dumb Blonde, but thank you. And then I looked at Everest. And by the end of the week, I had a coach that was training me for Everest and Ama. And then it kind of got elevated even further because he had called me and I was complaining because I'm sure my kids hated me at the moment. He told me to read this book. I read the book, and in the front, a lady had gotten a Guinness World Record for skiing across the Alps. I said I could have done that. My kids would actually think I'm cool. That's how they learned how to read. He's like, we'll think of something. We'll think of something. And I let it go because I was like, I'm not eating hot dogs or growing pumpkins, so whatever. And he called me a few months later, and he goes, Jen, I have the perfect record for you. I think you should be the first female to climb the 7 second summits. Second highest point in each continent. It's harder than the first 7, respected amongst the peers. You have 7 continents, 7 mountains, 7 kids. Sounds like a jackpot. And I said, let's try it. And there we are.
Wow. I've always had this weird relationship with folks who are world record holders because to me, I feel like they're the winners of the weird Olympics. Like they're training for this one thing that there's probably 2 or 3 other people on the planet who have any interest in that one thing. The idea of the world record, what did that mean to you? Well, like, what did that signify? Obviously, it's a world record. It's big. But what did it mean, like, sort of esoterically and tangibly to you in terms of being a world record holder?
Yeah. I think this is all coming out around the Me Too movement, right? So timing of all of that. I have 5 boys and then I have twin daughters at the bottom. And I just remember thinking, like, there is nothing different between these girls and these boys. And I don't want them to ever feel like there is. And so this quest was a chance to say, I can be a mom and a business owner and do things that set my heart on fire and make a difference in the world. Like I felt all of those things could be encapsulated by this one goal because I would show women like, hey, here I am on top of this mountain. We all have mountains to climb, metaphorical, physical. You can do it if you stay focused and determined and disciplined, and you can get all these things together in your life. And so to me, it was very much this pursuit of what's possible for all of us. And that really kept me like anchored into the goal and brought the joy that comes with achieving.
And so from Summit 1 to Summit 7, over what time period did you accomplish all that?
Yeah. So Summit 1 was 2.5 years. 2 mountains took twice. So I failed K2 the first time, and I failed Mount Logan the first time. Mount Logan was actually the last one I just summited in June of 2023. But yeah.
And when you say fail, I don't think there's no one up there with like tiny glasses giving you a report card that says, F or, a D. Well, what does it mean to fail? I'm assuming it just means like you had to stop?
Yes. And for different reasons, right? So I'll give you the story of K2. So K2 is known as one of the deadliest mountains in the world, right? There's been more people in space than the top of K2. I went to climb it in 2021. We did not have success summiting because when I was on the mountain, I had gotten a phone call on the radio, and the radio call came in. And when a radio call comes in K2, you have about 15 minutes to find a safe spot to pull over and take the call. The call comes in again and again and again. So I have 4 calls within a matter of 5 minutes, which automatically has me thinking something's wrong. So K2 is this environment where every day you hear avalanches and you become numb to them. It sounds like thunder or a bowling alley that's active during the morning hours, just because that's when the sun starts to heat up, the snow gets heavy, and it starts avalanching. So I'm thinking, man, we're ahead of everybody on the mountain. I wonder if there was one of these avalanches that caused a problem. There was. When we pulled over, we took the radio call. There was an avalanche that took one of my team members, injured another team member, and had another team member stuck on the mountain until it was safe enough to send a helicopter where the helicopter blades wouldn't vibrate the snow and cause another avalanche. So I had the choice to either continue up with another team or come back down with my team and help with all the carnage. I said, people over peaks. These peaks are always here. I'm going back down with my team. I have zero desire to climb with somebody else. I have a desire to show up for the people that are on my team. So I came home. A whole bunch of things went wrong. Like when the season's done in Pakistan, it's a monsoon season. Roads wash out. You can see it in the news every year, basically. All kinds of things. It took 70-mile trek out, 5 different vehicles to leapfrog around washed out roads, 3 airplanes, and I landed in LA. I remember landing in LA calling the nanny, hey, kids are at camp for a few more days. I'm going to decompress here because I need to process all these things that just happened. Because kids know when you're lying or saying like, hey, everything was good. We didn't summit. All these bad things happened that you can hear about. So I processed a whole bunch of terrible events that happened. But then when I came home and then the kids came home a few days later, they asked, how was the event? Said, I had success, but I didn't summit. The success was that I showed up as a person that I wanted to show up as when I had options to do otherwise. And the success was that a friend of mine passed away on the mountain. And it's sad, but he was 68, single, with no family, climbing one of the hardest mountains in the world. I'm not really sure what other death would look like for him that would be as successful doing his passion and all these things. And so I processed the loss for the year. In 2022, I went back to go summit K2, and I knew that I had to make this mountain, I had to mean more, right? As I was not excited about going back, I had all these terrible things. So I had to figure out, how can I make this me more impactful? And I had been informed that there had been some Pakistani women that were training to climb the mountain, but didn't have the financial resources to make it happen. So I came over with some gear and some financial resources. I climbed K2 and got to the summit. And then 2 Pakistani women, the first of their country, got to their country's prize peak summit. And that's because I failed the first time. And I turned that failure into success, and then even more so into significance. And it's this whole pursuit of this journey that has allowed so much more to unfold that it's been just magical to be a part of.
That is amazing. So Jenn, I have 2 things I want to unpeel there. And the first is, a lot of times for us lay people, when we see photos of people achieving the top of the summit, they've got a flag, they've got crust all over their face. you only see the one person. But the one thing I want to dig into is the team part of it. And as lay people, we think, oh, okay, this person did this thing, not thinking about all the dozens and dozens of people that are involved. Can you break down the importance of having those people there? Obviously, they're there to survive, to help you survive, but what else are they there for?
Oh, I mean, every little teeny tiny detail. We look every year on Everest. Everest season is May. How many people summit every year? I mean, it's like at least 50, 60, 70% of the people that go out will summit Everest in that given season. And that's because of the support on that mountain. You have the icefall where Nepal has people that are dedicated just to managing the icefall. So every single day, they reset the ropes or reset the ladders, and they go through it once in the morning and once in the evening to make sure it's safe for everybody else to go up that mountain. If you didn't have those icefall doctors there, every day that would have to be repaired by whatever team is there, or you'd be like the report would have to come back and you wouldn't know that all of a sudden this ladder isn't there anymore and you have to go left instead of going right. And I mean, when I climb K2, I'm not making weather decisions. I'm not worried about oxygen getting up the mountain. I'm not melting water to make dinner. I'm not setting up tents. All of that stuff is done for you. Yeah. And it's all of that that gives you enough energy as me as a normal human to be able to make it up to the top of that peak. That's the interesting thing about the second 7 summits is because a lot of them do not have these huge support teams to make these mountains happen. So, for example, when we went to do Mount Logan, there was 3 of us on the team. We're breaking trail. We're setting up the tents. We're deciding, is the weather good? Should we go up? Should we go down? What direction should we go? We have a Garmin device, but it doesn't say, oh, this year there's a crevasse there, so you can't go that way. You need to reroute. We're finding that out as we go. So it's the mountains, the bigger teams really help make them safer and way more successful than what you've ever seen in the past.
And the second part of the thing I wanted to break down was the cost part of it. You mentioned the financial contribution you made to help those 2 Pakistani women. From what I understand, this does not sound cheap. And without getting into your Excel spreadsheet of your expenses, how expensive can a summit climb cost? Just throw a number my way, just out of curiosity. Like for if someone was like, hey, they're listening to this conversation, hey, I'd like to hit one of those mountains. Like, what would going up one mountain average cost?
Okay, so I think Everest has the most stats on it. I don't think you can climb Everest for under $40,000 a season now. Okay. I mean, if you could find that, I'd be like amazing. But I don't even know if you'd want to climb it for $40,000. That meant a lot of things were being cut corners on. You can also climb Everest for up to $150,000. Because nowadays there's people that go there and they want to take a helicopter in or a helicopter out, or they want their own bathroom, or they want like all of these little amenities that add cost to having your comfort at the base camp of Mount Everest. So there's a very wide range, but I think just the permit that goes to the government of Nepal is $13,000 or $14,000.
Wow, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. You always hear around May the stories of the amount of trash that gets collected in these base camps, just the mess of it, and then you have people, of course, like everything in our life nowadays, Jen, everything, it's polarized. The people of Nepal and these other countries want these tourism dollars, but then there's the other part of them like, hey, stop shitting on our mountain.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word.
No, it's a big conundrum for them because this is their revenue. When COVID shut down the climbing permits for them for a year, that was a tragic thing for the entire country. So they need the permits for the climbing. There is a lot of effort put into big mountain cleanup. So I would say years ago, it was way worse than it is today. You can see the difference over the photos and everything. Not saying it's right, but it's definitely in the direction of, hey, this isn't a trash can. Let's clean this up.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to hear. Because it's so funny. Of everything, as you probably know, when it comes to Everest season, it's
the garbage.
First, the people dying, and second is the garbage, right? Yeah. I just wanted to break that down a little bit. And for someone who knows nothing about mountain climbing, to me, my vision of it is watching Sylvester Stallone Cliffhanger, or watching one of these action movies that take the Everest movie from a few years ago based on the Krakauer book. How accurate, because I'm sure you must have seen a couple of these along the way, whether it's a documentary or narrative. Are they close to capturing the difficulty of it? Because I remember the Everest movie. I was like, after watching, like I was always like, oh, that seems like something cool to do. And then after watching that, I'm like, no, thank you, I'm good. How well do they do at capturing the ascent of these mountains?
So I think the big thing to keep in mind is it really depends on the weather. Okay, so I live in Park City, Utah. If I decide to drive to Salt Lake City in a blizzard, I'm going to be white knuckling it. It's going to be hard and it's not going to be a fun ride. If it is one of the sunny days that's like pristine weather, roads are clear, all that kind of stuff, then that experience is an entirely different experience getting from A to B. The advantage nowadays is that the weather reports are so much more accurate. So it's very rare for you to be caught in some of those extreme things that we might have seen even 10 years ago because of all the technology advantages that we have now. I mean, put it this way, we got caught in a storm on Camp 2 on Mount Everest. We had a drone. So we sent the drone up to say, hey, can we still see the ropes? Or is there anything that's crashing or what's happening? So now all of a sudden we can do some beta before we even step out of our tents that you would never have been able to do before. Like the real heroes of these mountains are the people that climbed them when technology was nil and like boots were sewn together like I don't even know, right? It doesn't even make sense to me. We have such fine gear and everything's so amazing to make these climbs happen that it definitely can get harrowing at times, but it's way less common.
Could you actually have, like, I'm looking outside my window, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, it's 90 and sunny, not a cloud in the sky. Could there be, and obviously it's not that warm, your clouds, but could there be a perfect day like that in any of your 7 ascents where you were like, man, this is like walking in the park. This would be just like going through Central Park on a May Day. I mean, did you have those experiences along the way?
Yeah, not as many as I wish, but yes, I did have those experiences. I mean, like, so my last climb was Mount Logan in Canada. And we were doing amazing. Like timing was working well, weather was participating, all the things. We got to Camp 3 and then it all went to crap. And we were in this windstorm where we had all of our gear on at one point because if the tent ripped, we were dead. Because the tent, like this teeny tiny little fabric that was being pulled taut every 13 seconds by the wind, was like the one thing that was protecting us from the external environment. So we had all of our stuff on ready, like, okay, if something goes wrong, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to maybe survive until the storm passes and somebody can come rescue us. That happened, and that was going on for about a week. We got stuck at Camp 3. One of the 3 of us got frostbite, so had to be airlifted off the mountain when the weather cleared. And the day that he was airlifted off was the day that we were going to try to summit. So we're like, okay, well, we're going to help him get lifted off the mountain and then see what happens. That was a Tuesday. On Thursday, we had the best weather day we had on the entire mountain the entire time. I've been on this mountain for 2 years. It was like you got to the top and you're like, this is like the universe saying, congratulations, you survived. The princess is in this castle. We're good. And onward you go. But that was probably my best day on the mountain ever.
That's cool. Yeah, I would if I could sign up for a mountain climb, I would go for that. Give me the sunshine, get a little tan. And so now let's pivot into your pivot, because I know you were a financial analyst by day, a mountain climber by night, but now you've also used all of this information to sort of create this alter ego where you're a public speaker, you're a writer, you've got a book coming out. Tell me about this transition, because I know you've got all the other stuff you're still doing, but you're sort of transitioning into this role. And I hate to use like these like tired businessy terms, but like a thought leader and I know a lot of people in the space don't like to use motivational speaker. But tell me about this little move and shift in your life and what it means to you.
Right. So I did the financial track and have financial success from that path. I still own that business. It's still doing great. The accident kind of woke me up to saying, hey, there's more to success than financial success. Like, what do you really want to have impact on? And just watching my kids watch me do this goal and seeing them set goals and say, we do hard things and I've got this, and dream a little bit bigger than maybe they would have otherwise. That's been a bigger reward for me than helping somebody manage their financial books. And so this passion has kind of been fueled by my kids, been fueled by the pursuit, been fueled by sharing the story. When you're giving a speech and somebody in the audience has an aha moment, it's priceless. right? Or I get a message on an Instagram post or something and it says, hey, I dared to do this, or this is what I saw in you. And so I saw it in me. And they do something that they're so proud of that they share. I live for that. Like, that is so exciting and so fun and so encouraging that I just want to stay in that space because that's where I feel the most joy.
That's cool. And that's led you to your book, Quit Proof, which is in pre-order now. And again, I was joking earlier about the shots on the mountain. I think the book cover has a shot of you, like, celebrating on top of the mountain. But what does it mean to be quit proof?
Oh, okay. Well, the first thing is it doesn't mean you don't quit. Okay. It just means the quit is like when you want to quit, that's that moment that you can use the proof of everything that's happened thus far to either continue or pivot. And that's okay. Like, either direction is a win. It's giving you the chance to become aware, to accept that awareness, and now decide what your next move's going to be. And so the book is really about becoming resilient in what sets our heart on fire and having the courage to lean into that, and then what you need to do to help support yourself so that it's harder to quit. And it's easier to continue to pursue whatever sets your heart on fire, or gets you excited, or makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning. Every day, no. If you figure that out, write the book and I'll read it. But more often than not. So there you go.
And what is the idea of becoming quit proof? Was it because of the fact that when you're climbing these summits, whether you're building a business, whether you're raising 7 kids, there's days that you just want to quit in life? Where did that sort of idea or title, maybe the whole genesis was just the idea, the title of Quit Proof. Where did that all come from?
I think it's been the story of my life. If I look back, when I remember being a little kid and wanting to go to my grandma's house because she had gum, and I wasn't allowed to go to my grandma's house until I could bike on my driveway 13 times around this gravel driveway without training wheels, because that was the distance to get to grandma's. So the minute I was told that was the option, I got on that bike and rode all day long, knees skinned up, all the things, and I wouldn't quit because I wanted to go to grandma's. And my dad's like, I'm going to get in trouble by your mom. Like, you need to come in. I said, no, I'm not coming in. I'm going to figure this out. So I figured it out. When I had fertility issues, I figured it out. Like, I'm so grateful that I figured it out, because that reward's been just nonstop and giving and giving and giving. When I got into the business world and said, okay, I'm going to be a female in this male-dominated industry, and I'm going to set this up and do these things, there was a ton of days that I wanted to quit, but it was so much more important for me to continue. And because I continued, the success was there. When it came to the mountains, yeah, I want to quit like every other day. I'm cold, I'm wet, I don't like eating dehydrated food, and I really don't like sleeping in a tent. I'll be honest. But knowing at the top of that mountain, the reason why it's so magical, it's because it's kind of like a trophy saying, hey, you did it. There's 1,001 times you want to turn around and say, no, I'm done. Thank you. It's game over. But you didn't. You stuck with it. You stayed there. And so when you sit up on the top of the mountain, you're like, I can do so much more when I dare to not quit, when I dare to push just a little bit further and see what's possible or capable or all the things.
And even though you're not a psychologist or a psychotherapist, I feel like you understand the human condition better than most people, because in a previous life, I ran a couple New York City marathons, used to run 5Ks, 10Ks, and always, no matter what, in the first mile, I would always have almost like an external monologue with myself where I would be, what are you doing this for? Why are you here? Why did you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday to go do this stupid run in the middle of nowhere? And then you just work through it. So where does that come from us humans? This ability to just be able to just question what you're doing, because I'm sure you probably had a couple times at those mountains like, what the F am I doing up here? What? I have a much better, Park City's a lot nicer this time of year. Like, what am I doing here? How do us humans do that to ourselves? Like, what is it about us?
Yeah, I laugh about it too, because I sit there and think of how much I paid on some of these expeditions. Like, I could have gone on a cruise in the Mediterranean, by myself in a huge yacht. Like, what am I doing? Why is this the torment that I put myself through? But I do feel, as humans, we are suckers for progress. Like, the tiniest little progress just gives us so much motivation and so much desire to bring more progress forth, that it's that gets us, and then it bites us, and then we keep doing things to show that we can make progress.
I love that, progress. Have you always been sort of this well-rounded? Because I know what people that are highly successful, especially when it comes into the financial sector, they're really good at that one thing. Like I always have this argument with people that rich doesn't always mean smart. Like rich could also mean like you're really good at one thing or got quote unquote lucky about this one thing and you became super successful. Were you this person when you were like raking in big dough as a financial analyst, building that business? Or do you think, post-accident, climbing these summits, raising 7 kids, do you think that's what sort of created this full maximum effort, Jenn Drummond?
I think I was chasing something outside of me and kept thinking that if I made more money or I got to this spot, or it was that if this happens, then that will happen. And you do that in enough categories and it doesn't, all of a sudden you start doing the game of internal work and realizing I have all the things, I am all the things. And so I just need to become peaceful with myself and then pursue all the things, but from a place of wholeness instead of a place of lack. And I would say the whole journey has been a lesson in that. And that's probably my life's work, is to always remember I'm good where I am, but that doesn't mean I can't desire more, but I should do that from a place of being full instead of a place of, I hope this completes me.
Her name is Jenn Drummond. You can pre-order her book, Quit Proof, right now on all major book retailers. Jenn, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
And that'll do it for another episode of the Forbes Books Podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe. That way you'll get new episodes as soon as they're available. And if you have a spare moment, I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave a review, which would help other exceptional entrepreneurs like you discover the show. You can always connect with me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Joe Pardavila. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.